Patch 8 has just launched today, and many of us are ready to jump into a brand new run of Baldur's Gate 3, covering all of the exciting improvements. In this video today, I want to bring a build I've wanted to do for ages, but finally have a chance to show off. My Jedi build, utilizing Eldritch Knight Fighter and Blade Singing Wizard to give you a really fun combination of melee and spellcasting. This is the build I'm running in my most recent Dark Urge stream on the channel as well, so it's tested. In my typical fashion of upfronting all the knowledge in my videos, let me give you the leveling spread for this character. I've done a similar build before, which you can find linked in the upper right hand corner, but this time we'll be taking 6 levels of Wizard Blade Singing. This will turn on our extra attack and give us plenty of spells to take advantage of. Then we'll take 4 levels of Fighter to give us access to an additional feat, before finishing off with 2 more levels of Wizard, which gives us, yet again, another feat, as well as more spell slots. There are a lot of ways to do this build, mixing in more Fighter than Wizard, getting access to war magic so you can use your bonus action for more fun, but this is the way I wanted to approach this one today. But if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down. As always, I want to be respectful of your time. You can jump to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. And before you head out, if you find the information in this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those things helps me in a huge way. Also, take a look at my Twitch linked in the comment and description, where I will be streaming my new Pure Evil run using this build and more that I will be uploading. But let's get started on my favorite Patch 8 Wizard Jedi build in Baldur's Gate 3. Jumping into character creation, we have a lot of different choices for race. Now, of course, this is a single player narrative game. As always, choose the race that you want to look at throughout the entirety of your game. Some standout ones, though, are, of course, the Gith, because Gith give us access to proficiency in short sword, long sword, and great sword, which we will get some of those with Blade Singing and with Fighter, of course, but it's nice to have that turned on from the start. Gith in general have really good cantrips that they can leverage. They also get access to astral knowledge, so getting proficiency in skills of a chosen ability. Since we aren't focusing on charisma with this character, we can tap into this and give us benefits towards intimidation, persuasion, any of the conversational skills or abilities if you so wish. Human and half-elf are also good options because they deliver shield proficiency. For a caster, again, you will get access to this just by being a fighter, but you're going to have to wait until level 7, character level 7, to tap into that. This is a good thing to turn on. Of course, since we are going to be a melee character, well, a melee hybrid character, half orc is always good because getting access to savage attacks gives us an additional roll when it comes to our critical hits. Oh, I'm sorry, you deal an extra dice of damage, not an extra roll, and you get relentless endurance. So whenever you get knocked down to 0 hit points, you come back to life with 1 hit point. They're great advantages. And you can always be a drow because it's my favorite one and I love it the most. So why not choose a drow? Now, with our creation, we're of course going to be choosing a wizard, and with our cantrips, really it does come down to dealer's choice in all things in this game, but you really want to pick up Booming Blade. Strike with your weapon, afflicting your foe with a resonance that hurts them for 1 to 8 thunder damage when they move. This will use a melee attack to do so. So what the really cool about this is it is going to go off of your weapon, plus then that 1 to 8 thunder damage. And we're going to trigger tons of things off of this using this build. Other good ones here, of course, though, are stuff like Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, since we will be up close and personal, and Blade Ward are some standout ones. But if you want to add a little bit more range capability, you do have Firebolt, you have Bone Chill, Toll the Dead that's a new necromancy one, as well as Bursting Sinew. So tap into the ones that make sense for the build. I think I would probably do that. And you're going to get more cantrips too once you choose Eldritch Knight, so don't feel like you're missing out on any of these. With our spells, you're a wizard, right? So you're going to choose spells here, but you're going to be able to scribe most of them, so don't worry about only picking the right ones. But here's just some really good standout ones that I really like. It's just those 3 are so solid, because Magic Missile, you don't have to roll to hit, it's just going to hit the target. Shield is great the entirety of the game, and we're going to be using Mage Armor because we're really not going to use so much light armor. There are just so many really good robes for our play style that we're going to really leverage those. And since we're going to have a good dexterity modifier, this is going to help us really pull tons of AC into the character. And then outside of that is I like stuff like Longstrider because it is a ritual spell, meaning it does not cost a spell slot to use, and it gives you additional 10 feet of movement for every single character you cast it on, which will be the entire party. Tasha's hideous, and since we are going to be some sort of force using ability character, which bolt is going to be on the list. So that's a good little set of things to start off with. When it comes to your background, again, always choose a background that fits the role play for the character you have in mind. Are you some sort of criminal, entertainer, outlander, whatever it is? If you do want more of a min-maxy pick, I do like Guild Artisan because this gives us both insight and persuasion, two really strong skills to have out the gate. And when it comes to our actual skills, let's assume we don't have anything chosen here. This is what that would look like for our character. We do have perception on by default because we are a drow, but assuming you didn't, this is what this would look like. Now, in the build that I'm playing with this character, I'm doing actually a Dark Urge run, which would actually then, negate this. We'd have two different skill uses. I'm trying to make a build here that doesn't really hinge so much on charisma because I play almost all my face characters, my main characters, like that. So I've decided personally to not do that. So I'm going to choose Arcana and History. If you are trying to use charisma and really have that be a focal point and really try to drive home a lot of the conversational options because you are trying to have a peaceful or semi-good playthrough, then please disregard what I said. But I want this character, even though it's a Jedi Consular build, I want him to be like a Sith. I want him to be super evil in the stream that I'm doing of this. So dealer's choice again on how you're going to approach those skills. So with our ability scores, we're going to choose two big focuses. It's going to be dexterity because it's going to give us our armor class, our initiative, and it's going to be the vehicle for our melee damage since we're going to focus on finesse weapons. And then our intelligence, which is going to scale pretty much everything across both Eldritch Knight and Blade Singing Wizard. So let's drop as many points as we can into intelligence. We're going to use improved ability scores to get this to 19 and then something else to get it to 20. Then we're also going to focus on some constitution because we will have a ton of concentration spells to take advantage of. It's also our health pool, right? So let's get this up to 14. And then the rest of the points are going to go into dexterity as high as they can go, with the +1 bonus bringing it to 16, giving us some good armor class. Now, again, like I said, I'm not trying to push the charisma on this build. If you did want to, that is what you would do. You'd put those 2 points into charisma so you wouldn't have any penalties when you're doing any of the conversational skills. But if you're like me and you're trying to do like an evil playthrough, I'd put them into wisdom so we have a little bit better of a chance of resisting anything that would charm or help or have us lose control of the character. But this is the ability score for this build. So before we go any further, I just want to quickly talk about our leveling split and what we'll be doing. Like I said, I'm going to focus more on the wizarding side of things because I already have a build that is 7 levels into fighter and 5 levels into wizard with abjuration. That's my Sith Lord build in the upper right hand corner. With patch 8 to update that build, I would swap in, instead of abjuration wizard, I would do the new blade singing. Now, the reason you'd go 7 levels, and you can take this exact build with 7 levels as well and be just fine, is because of this. War magic is something you get at level 7 of Eldritch Knight. And this allows the fighter to make an attack after using a cantrip by using a bonus action. And since we have Booming Blade, that counts as a cantrip that will trigger your extra attack that you then would use your bonus action to follow through with more damage. So this allows you to turn a lot of damage on and a good amount of potential for the character. And another big thing too, to take a look at your split here, and I'm going to zoom in here for those of you that are on mobile, is this website here. You get to put in what levels you want to get an idea. So the reason I've gone 4 levels into fighter and 8 levels into wizard for this build is because this is what it would look like otherwise. And I wanted this to be more of a caster. So this only gives us the 4th level of spells. If I put this to 8 and this to 4, this gives us up to the 5th level of spell. Now, of course, if I was just a pure wizard, we would get up to the 6th level. So that's the trade-off here, right? We're never going to get the 6th level of spell in this. And you could even try to, I think that starts at, that's 10 then. No, 11. 11 is when you would get that 6th level. And actually, I think, because you get like, no, okay. Basically, the way that this works is it's based off of what your class is. Is it a pure caster or a half caster, as it is called up there? But either way, this is why I've gone with this split, is it gives me access to 5th level spells, which makes it more of a casting character versus the 7-5 split, which makes it more of a melee character. So use this calculator, use whatever you want to make the decision for yourself, but it's why we chose what we chose for this video. Switching gears here into the actual build. I'm going to be using EIP over here, this website that has everything laid out. I've started doing this so it's because it's a lot easier to talk about my builds, and then we'll jump into the game on certain portions like discussing the feat and what have you. And I'm going to have a link here so you can just go ahead and follow this as you see fit in your playthrough. So to start us off, we're going to, of course, go with 1 level into Wizard. That's going to give us the Booming Blade cantrip. We went through all this portion right at the very beginning, right? Then we're going to get level 2. Now, when you choose level 2, you'll choose Blade Singing, and you'll choose whatever spells you want. I put Long Strider and Burning Hands into here, but feel free to choose whatever spells are going to work for you, because remember, you're a wizard. This doesn't matter. You're going to scribe scrolls of anything you find. If I say, hey, yeah, definitely choose these here because you probably won't have access to it otherwise, I will definitely let you know. But what you should know is when you choose this in the game, it's going to ask you, hey, what weapon do you want to choose? Don't worry about it. Whatever weapon you pick, you're not bound to that weapon. It's just telling you that it's going to give you the weapon so that you can use it immediately. It's kind of like if you're playing a bard and you choose performance and it says, hey, do you want a lyre, a lute, or whatever? It doesn't matter what you choose. You can use whatever instrument you find. So when you find that prompt in the game, don't worry about it. But one thing we need to take note of here is how Bladesong works. Invoke the Bladesong. You gain proficiency bonus to armor class and your movement speed increases by 3 meters. You also gain advantage in acrobatics and a proficiency bonus to constitution saving throws. You also unlock Bladesong Climax and the ability to accumulate Bladesong charges in combat. And we'll talk about that once we get further into this video. But you can't wear medium armor, heavy armor, shields, none of it. You must be wielding a dagger, longsword, rapier, scimitar, short sword, or sickle. So those are the weapons you have access to, it offers. But that's the biggest thing you need to know here. So we're limited to light armor and cloth, no shields. So if you're wondering why those aren't in the build, that's exactly why. So once we do that, we're going to come to level 3. We're going to choose specifically Shadow Blade, because I don't think you'll have gotten it at this point in the game, but this is a really big one for us because it just opens up a ton of damage potential, and it is really good. 2d8 psychic damage. It's going to be really strong because we can upcast this with more levels down the line, all sorts of stuff, which I actually don't think that does much. But you make the attack roll with advantage as well if they're within dimly lit or darkness. So you can really have a lot of fun here playing around with the darkness spell and what have you. Other spells that you can go in this area though are Mirror Image, Misty Step. Those are both really good because they don't require concentration. Mirror Image is one of the very few defensive abilities that you're going to take advantage of that doesn't require concentration. And it's a really good one because each illusory duplicate gives you 3 AC per. So on first cast, it gives you 9 AC. It's a real strong one. But stuff like Scorching Ray, anything that you want to choose here, you definitely can. I like Magic Weapon, but again, it's a concentration ability. So you just kind of have to keep those things in mind. You're going to start running out of concentration because there's so many things that are vying for that spot. Into level 4, we're going to choose another cantrip. I went with Bursting Sinew just because it's fun. It's one of the newer cantrips, but go with whatever you see fit. If you didn't take Blade Ward up here, maybe that's when you take Blade Ward here. But another good one is Blur. Just keep in mind it is a concentration spell. Cloud of Daggers, Darkness, those are all real great spells. They just are concentration spells as well. But Hold Person is another really good one I definitely recommend here. I don't know why I have Cloud of Daggers, to be totally honest with you. We're going to switch it on over to Hold Person, because when you hit someone that's held by this, it's guaranteed critical hits. That's huge, right? Since you have the ability to do quite a bit of damage in melee. And for our feat, we're going to have a discussion about that. So the first one here we're going to choose is ability improvement, but let's go through all the ones that are really good for this build. So with this, of course, like I just said, ability improvement is going to be the biggest one. That's our strong feat. Because we put 2 points into this, it brings us to 19. If you get things like the Hag's Hair, it brings you to 20. So intelligence is key because it's going to be the source of the majority of our damage. Dexterity, of course, is going to help out with our melee damage, but there are lots of ways to add our spellcasting modifier to all of our melee damage in this game through items, through all sorts of stuff. So having high intelligence is key here. Some other things, though, that are really good is, remember, we're going to be using just a single weapon. So we're not going to be worrying about stuff like dual wield or any of that kind of crap because we can't really do anything with it. And we're going to be going with duelist when it comes to the fighter's stance. So defensive duelist is another really good one. When attacked while wielding a finesse weapon, which you'll be using, you're proficient with, you can use a reaction to add your proficiency bonus to your armor class, possibly the attack, causing the attack to miss. So this is an early defensive one that you can take. I wouldn't take it as the first one. I'd still stick with that improved ability improvement, IAS. I would definitely go with this ability improvement score. It's just a good one out the gate, but I do like this one as a second pick, or mobile as a second pick. Your movement speed is increased and difficult terrain doesn't slow you down when you dash. If you move after making a melee attack, you don't provoke opportunity attacks from your target. This is the same thing the Swashbuckler has built into the class. I really like mobile here because this allows you to dip in, do damage, and leave the situation without incurring any opportunity attacks or situations where something's right up in your cookie jar. You can use this to give yourself a little bit of room. Other big ones too are Savage Attacker, just to help increase your melee damage if you wish. Warcaster is really good here because of the amount of concentration spells we'll be using. You get an advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration on a spell. You can also use a reaction to cast Shocking Grasp at a target moving out of melee range, so that you can use that as an opportunity attack basically. Another really good one here too is Resilient Constitution. This allows you +1 in your Constitution score. So those 2 points that we talked about, I put into Wisdom. You could have put them into Constitution instead, and this gives you 16 Constitution. So a +3 to Constitution checks. But the biggest thing here is it gives us a proficiency bonus in that ability's saving throws. So anytime you have to make a concentration check, which is a Constitution check, this gives you your proficiency bonus to that saving throw. So there's plenty of feats that you can select and go through. The ones that we'll be using are Defensive Duelist, Ability Improvement, and I think I went with Warcaster. It's on the build, but those are the 3 that I just kind of like for this build. But I don't think, like, I was hard pressed to choose Warcaster over mobile, or there's definitely ways I would have gone with Resilient. So feel free to flex around, try different options. Lucky is always a really good one. Light armor. Oh, there's no light armor master, is there? I thought there was. No, there's not. I guess not. But there is Alert, which is always a fan favorite. So there are plenty of options to go with. These are just some of the standout ones for me. Jumping back over to EIP for the rest of our levels. So we're level 4, right? We're just starting to get into that midpoint of Act 1, and we have a lot of good choices to go with. Coming into level 5, we definitely want to get Counterspell plus whatever other spell you want to go with. I do like Fireball because it is a dexterity saving throw, but it still does damage if they resist it. Stuff like Glyph of Warding is really good though. Haste is really strong. Hypnotic Pattern is great. Lightning Bolt to get into that very fun Jedi mindset, that Force user mindset. I do like all of these. In fact, you know what? Why am I going with Fireball? It's Lightning Bolt right now. There's plenty of level 3 spells, but I definitely think Counterspell is the most important one to get because I do not know when you will get access to it in the game in the form of a scroll. I'm pretty sure it's after this point, well after this point of level 5. I do think you get it at the beginning of Act 2. So you'll maybe have to wait a little bit longer to do that. Another good one here is Vampiric Touch, but you'll notice that a lot of the ones that I've pointed out as really good all require concentration. You don't always have to maintain that concentration for some of them, but for like 90% of them you do. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Just make sure anything you choose in this options menu, you don't really kind of crowd yourself up. But again, you're a wizard. Mix and match stuff as you see fit. Don't feel like you're bound to each one of these levels. Into level 6, we're going to get our last level of wizard for quite a little bit, but this opens up extra attack. And since we already have a method to really focus on our melee damage and trigger it with Booming Blade and Bladesong, this is really going to give us a good power spike. In addition, we're going to get access to plenty of spells. We got access to our level 3 spells back there at level 5, so this is just more of the same. I'm just going to click randomly here. Blink's a really good one because this gives you a little bit of mobility. Gaseous Form is really great. I'll click Glyph of Warding is one of my favorites. But now we're into level 7, so we've crested Act 1. We're coming into the beginning of Act 2, and this is where you're going to start to get a little bit more staying power and a little bit more utility throughout the build. Level 1 brings us our fighting style, which we're going to go with is dueling. When you are wielding a melee weapon that is not two-handed or versatile in one hand and no weapon in the other, you deal an additional 2 damage with that weapon. Conversely, you can go with defense, but that requires you to wear armor. Cloth is not armor, so you would need to always be wearing light armor. So you can go with that route if you want, but I think dueling is just a better all-around damage bonus to you. Get you a little bit of a heal here, 1d10 plus level hit points. And then level 2 for fighter at level 8, character level 8, level 2 fighter, we get Action Surge. So remember now we can use that Action Surge for tons of things. I believe they patched the way that Booming Blade works. You can't just simply spice it up with action surge. I believe it's one, you get one extra attack per booming blade that I'm sorry, you can only use extra attack once with booming blade, but you can use extra attack as many times as you want with a melee weapon. So for example, if I were to use action surge, I've got 2 primary actions, right? So I use booming blade, then I get an extra attack. Well, I can't use booming blade again to get an extra attack, I believe is what they just recently patched into this build, which is now live for all of us. So you would have to just simply use a martial attack to get that bonus, or use a spell because you're a wizard. So there are tons of things to take advantage of in those scenarios. Into level 9 here, we're going to start to get into our Eldritch Knight, which is going to give us more cantrips to take advantage of. Just choose whichever ones you really want. I put, what did I put? I put Ray of Frost and Bone Chill because I didn't put them at the very beginning, but maybe you did choose those and you want to go with Bursting Sinew or Toll the Dead, whichever ones you really feel are going to fit the theme of what you've done. If you've not picked up Blade Ward, this is definitely the time to do it because I don't think you can choose it anymore after this point. But it is definitely good because you will be in close combat and it gives you resistance to melee damage. Now, Eldritch Knight spells, it's just kind of shore up whatever ones that you didn't have. Shield, for example, I deliberately didn't take it so far up to this point, but you probably already have these as scrolls, so don't really worry about it. And then you choose another wizard spell. Again, we don't really necessarily care so much about that. It's just giving us stuff like weapon bond here, so we can't have that weapon disarmed. Into level 4 fighter at level 10 gives us another Eldritch Knight spell. I went with Magic Missile here. You would already have Magic Missile. It doesn't matter. Just choose something, if anything. But we also choose another feat. And I've chosen Mobile at this point. I think I said I was going to be Defensive Duelist, so I'll do that. I've clicked around this thing so many damn times that sometimes it kind of eludes me. But now that we're at level 10, we're finishing up Act 2. And we're going to start getting into Act 3. We have 4 levels into fighter. This increases a lot of our damage potential. Eldritch Knight's going to scale with all of our intelligence. We have plenty of things going for us, and we can really amp up our melee damage through these 4 levels, right? Getting action surge and all that. So into those final 2 levels here in Act 3, we're going to take advantage of our level 4 spells that we can have plenty of fun with. Blight is a good one. Conjure Minor Elemental is really, really good. If you want to be a bit of a summoner, Dimension Door is a great mobility spell because you can do it with yourself and another partner. Fire Shield, which I grab later, which you can grab right now, is a really good one. The Resilient Sphere is awesome. Even though Phantasmal Killer and its level 2 counterpart, I want to say, or level 3 counterpart, they're both concentration spells, but they're really cool to hammer the advantage of thunder onto things. Haunt a creature with illusions in its greatest fears. It takes per turn. It can no longer move and will be easier to hit. I got Phantasmal Killer confused with Phantasmal Force. Force the Phantasm. Mask the Phantasm. Phantasmal Force. Deal damage to a creature each turn. The type of damage changes to the last type of the damage suffered. So this allows you to really kind of amp up tons of thunder damage on a character. Phantasmal Force is a really great ability, and it's only a level 2 spell. But into our level 4 ones, Fire Shield is really good to help you give resistance to fire or cold damage and give a retaliation. Really nice. Greater Invisibility is always good. There's plenty of good level 4 spells. Stone Skin's awesome. Wall of Fire is great. So choose whatever you so wish. And the same thing here at level 12. And you're going to choose your last feat. Go with Warcaster if you so wish to get that advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration. You've seen how much we're doing with concentration. And don't be afraid to take these at a different pace, right? Take Warcaster second rather than third when it comes to your selection choices. So please choose whatever makes sense for you, but this is the leveling portion of this. Let's now go into some gear discussion. So I don't have all these items, unfortunately. In this playthrough that I have saved at level 12, I did not go to the creche. So as a result, I don't have a lot of these items actually. So the first one I want to talk about is the Boots of Stormy Clamor. When the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature, they also inflict 2 turns of reverberation. Using your booming blade will inflict a condition upon a hostile creature. So that booming blade also inflicts reverb. So you cast booming blade, it hits. Well, that's 3 stacks of reverb if they move, right? They move and that's when it triggers the booming blade's damage. Also, we have the Gloves of Belligerent Skies. When the wearer deals thunder damage, lightning, or radiant damage, inflicts 2 turns of reverb. So you can see that if they move, they have a chance to get knocked prone because that will be 5 total stacks of reverb on the target. And that's huge because if we're doing that, they're prone, we can just pour the damage on them. Both of these are so good. And while I do have them here, there are definitely other options we're going to talk about in just a little bit, but I couldn't show them off in the actual game, so I'm doing it here. Now, another really good one here is this armor, Robe of Supreme Defenses. You're only going to get this in Act 3 as long as you do not progress the story with Shadowheart. You have to talk to a vendor right at the beginning of Act 3 in Rivington. Exquisite Focus. While concentrating, you add your spellcasting modifier to saving throws and gain +1 to bonus to your armor class. We're going to be doing tons of concentration spells. So this is huge. In conjunction with all the other ways we're going to increase our AC, it gives us a ton of survivability and it gives us tons of reliability on keeping our concentration stuff up. And the other two rings that I unfortunately don't have are the Ring of Elemental Infusion. When you deal acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage using a spell or cantrip, that element infuses your weapon. So now when we use Booming Blade, we now just have a thunder weapon. Until the end of your next turn, you deal an additional 1d4 of that element on your first successful weapon attack. So we're always going to be able to use this and take advantage of it. It's really, really good with this build. Now, another one too is the Ring of Arcane Synergy. You're going to get this in Act 1. When you deal damage with a cantrip, you gain Arcane Synergy for 2 turns. Booming Blade, it's a cantrip. It's going to really work really well with us. Arcane Synergy also goes well with this helmet right here. The Diadem. When you inflict a condition, gain Arcane Synergy for 2 turns. So you can see how so much of this stuff is going to stack together and give us a ton of roving conditions and buffs and everything on the character. And to be fair, if we're not talking about this piece of armor, everything I've mentioned happens at latest the midpoint of Act 2. Not even the midpoint of Act 2. Almost everything I've said is in Act 1. So your character comes online extremely fast. So let's jump into the game to show off some of the items that we do have and show off some gameplay. Before we talk about gear, I think it's important to talk about how Bladesong works, because it's the biggest portion of this build and how we get a lot of stuff out of things. So for one, Bladesong, invoke the Bladesong. You gain a +3 bonus to armor class and your movement speed increased by 10 feet for me because I have it on that setting. You also gain advantage in acrobatics and a +3 bonus to constitution saving throw because that is reminiscent of my proficiency bonus. You also unlock Bladesong Climax and the ability to accumulate Bladesong charges. So let's look at this. So Bladesong charges, what in the hell are those? So you accumulate 2 different types of charge, a healing charge and a damage charge. Attacking with a weapon grants healing charges. And as you can see, a charge that will increase how much you heal yourself and your allies by 1 to 6 hit points when using Bladesong Climax. The other one is the damage charge. Now this does increase 1 to 6 force damage from Bladesong Climax, which we'll talk about in a second. You only accumulate Bladesong damage charges by casting level 1 or above spells. Cantrips are considered level 0 spells, so keep that in mind. As much as I've talked about Booming Blade and using all those fun cantrips, they are level 0 spells. And it says too, casting level 1 or above that is not a weapon attack. So specifically casting, let's just say, Scorching Ray. There you go. That's one of them. Melf's Acid Arrow. Ice Knife. Even Ice Knife is just a simple level 1 spell. Just casting the spell does it. That's how you get more damage into your Bladesong Climax. So what is Bladesong Climax? Unleash the full damaging and healing effects of your Bladesong at once. Your Bladesong damage charges will harm enemies an additional 1 to 6 force damage, and your Bladesong healing charges will heal you and your allies an additional 1 to 6 hit points. This will end your Bladesong. It does require a bonus action, which is cool, and a 10-foot movement speed. It has got a 30-foot range, and it will be an intelligence-based save, but it's nice. It's force. Very rarely is that ever going to be resisted, and the healing is always going to be a boon. This is why it's a Jedi Consular style of build, because you can do damage and heal things using force, because it's kind of like a thing, right? Just keep in mind, you've got these things, you can't wear medium or heavy, can't wield anything that's not these things. Now, to get Bladesong to work, you have to turn it on. And you turn it on by simply clicking. And you've got these 3 charges of Bladesong power. Replenishable resource replenishes in a long rest only. So don't go crazy using this all the time. It's why I'm going to show you another thing that's going to give us tons of damage. So I'm going to go ahead and click this and just cast it. And now we're blade singing here. And it's not until long rest, but we get that +3 bonus to our armor class. Your movement speed is increased by 10 feet. You gain advantage, acrobatics, blah, 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 blah. And then you'd go ahead and use your climax right here, just to show you what that looks like really fast. So anything in that range, right? So let's just do this. So you move and do that. So that's how Bladesong works. I wanted to quickly illustrate that since it's new today with patch 8. And if you haven't played it, you don't know how this really works. It allows you to lunge towards that target, heal things and damage things in the range. If that was, clearly that was just friends, right? So we were just going to be doing healing there. Otherwise, it would have done damage to any enemies. So that is how that works. And one last thing I want to show off too before we get into the gear, because I am going to show off gear, but I think it's very important that we have its own section for Shadow Blade. So Shadow Blade does 2 to 6 psychic damage, of course. When you use the sword to attack a target that is in dim light or darkness, you make an advantage on the attack roll. It cannot be unequipped, or it can be equipped and unequipped can, but it cannot, you can't put it on the ground. And the nice thing is, this lasts until long rest. There's ways to cheese this, but you would use something like this. Spell slot restoration to use your single level 5 spell slot to cast this spell and then have your level 5 spell slot available to your character. But you click this, we upcast it. So let's just see at level 2, 2 to 16 psychic damage. We're upcasting it to level 5. Turns into a 4 to 32 psychic damage weapon. And that's our weapon now. We don't worry about any weapon throughout the entirety of this build. Really, this is our primary one. It does 10 to 38 damage. It's sick, it does psychic damage, and you can amp that up in a bunch of different ways through a bunch of different stuff, but that is our big primary thing. And we use Booming Blade to add thunder damage into it. So plenty of ways that we're going to do tons of fun stuff using all this stuff in conjunction. Now, assuming you for some reason don't want to use Shadow Blade, it's the newest big craze. We do have some weapons I'm going to point out that you can take advantage of, especially in the early game. And in the early game, just use any of the weapons you can use, right? Short swords, scimitars, long swords that are good, like a +1. One of them, there's the singing scimitar. There's this Sylvan scimitar. Instead of using your dexterity modifier, the affected entity adds its spellcasting modifier to attack rolls. I believe you get this from Jaheira in Act 2. You've also got the Sword of Life Stealing, which you also get in Act 2. Falar Aluve, which you get in Act 1. So those are some really good early leveling weapons that you can use until you get Shadow Blade Online, which we've shown is very quick in the game. But again, I want to show you options if you don't want to use them. If you're pushing Will's storyline ahead, you can actually use this, which is pretty cool, right? You gain +1 bonus to spell save DC. Instead of using your dex, you use your spellcasting modifier for attack rolls. It's a +2 ability or a weapon, and it gives you Planar Ally Cambion. You can still use this to summon a Cambion and then put it away if you so wish, but it's there for you. And you also have the Duelist Prerogative, which is one of my favorite just single rapiers that you can use. It gives you plenty of stuff to do with increased critical hits. It gives you an extra reaction to weaponize that reaction to do necrotic damage. And it gives you a Duelist Enthusiasm to use your bonus action for more damage. So this is, again, if you don't want to use Shadow Blade, here's weapons. I wanted to just give you options here in this build. Now, outside of that, we have the armor. So for our gear, one of the biggest things is your headpiece. You can use the diadem that we talked about just a second ago of Arcane Synergy, but you're eventually going to want to use this. It's a weird bug right now where it doesn't show you the actual thing. That's because I'm on the beta patch, but this will all go live, of course, differently for you guys. Whenever you deal damage with a weapon attack, and Booming Blade is a weapon attack, you gain Arcane Acuity, which is different than Arcane Synergy. But Arcane Acuity here, affected entity has +1 bonus to its attack rolls and spell DC class for each remaining turn. So we can stack that up using this so easily, especially because you use 2 weapon attacks in a turn. That gives you 4 turns of this. It's just a really strong capability to use, and that lasts again for 4 turns, stacking even further and further and further. And it's light armor. It's one of the best items in the game for any kind of character of this ilk. But until you get that in Act 2, you can use pretty much anything else. And I think it's a rare time that you get to use any of the wizard hats. So have fun with the wizard hats if you find any. When the wearer deals thunder damage, guess what you're going to be doing? You gain Arcane Acuity. So this is a good thing to use in the meantime because it's kind of the same thing. When you deal fire damage, arcane acuity. Once per turn, any condition inflicted on a target also applies 2 turns of encrusted with frost. So have fun with these. There's even the pyro quickness hat in Act 3 you can use, or the fist breaker helm in the very, very beginning of Act 2. Act 3 does give you the hood of the weave if you want to focus more on your spell casting purely, even though this does help you with your spell casting, but it requires you to do a little bit of melee. But still, it's up to you really, right? So I just want to give you some options for things that you can go with your helmet, especially if you hate the look of the helmet of acuity, kind of like I do. Now for the armor, that one piece I showed you earlier is truly the best one, I think, in this situation. But if you want to use light armor and you're not going evil, you can use the elegant studded armor, +2 bonus to initiative, advantage on stealth checks, and it just gives you a free cast of shield. Now, of course, if you are going evil, use the ballast armor because it helps with piercing. Keep in mind here that the shadow blade here does not do pierce damage, I don't think. I don't remember. No, remember when I said does it do pierce damage? As it says psychic. Yeah, it does psychic damage. So the ballast armor's advantage of giving you the weakness, or the vulnerability to piercing is not going to be taken advantage of with the shadow blade, but it does have other cool things that it can do. I just wanted to point out that those are 2 of the really famous light armors. But even leveling up, you can go with any of the light armor that you find. The light armor, the drow armor, all those are light. The spider silk armor here is really cool. The stealth checks, whatever, but it gives you advantage on constitution saving throws. Remember, we said concentration is our saving throws. At the very beginning of the game in the well, the poisoner's robe is great. When the wearer casts a spell that deals poison damage, deals an additional 1 to 4 poison damage. So you can use that on the poison cantrip. You can use it on poison spells. Just amp up a little bit more poison damage. And you know what? It looks pretty damn sick. It uses the same kind of format as the potent robe or the other robe we talked about, the one supreme defense. They have the same look here. Another one though here is just the ice bite robe for armor of Agathis. Any of the robes that when you're leveling up until you get to Act 3, take advantage of them. They're all really cool looking, and I never really get to play with them a ton. You're not going to have a ton of problems with your AC, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But even in Act 3, you can get the Robe of the Weave for spell save DC, and whenever the wearer succeeds a saving throw against a spell, they regain some hit points. So this is a really good one. It's very Jedi-ish, right? Very Jedi Consular-ish. But the other one is just so much better. So those are your chest options. Into your glove options, I really do like the glove of Battle Mage's Power. When a weapon attack roll inflicts a condition, guess what? Booming Blade's a condition. The wielder gains arcane acuity. We already saw what that is. So you can see that this, in conjunction with the helmet, is +3 turns per turn. And if you use a Battle Mage's Potion, which is right here, affected entity has arcane acuity until its long rest, replaces effects from other elixirs. You constantly have 3 stacks of it. You can see it when you jump into combat, it'll degrade, right? But all this in conjunction means that you would swing once and get 6 stacks of arcane acuity. It's disgusting. But there are some other really cool items you can use. In the very beginning of the game, the bracers of defense here give you +2 bonus to your armor class, as long as you're not wearing armor or holding a shield, so no light armor if you use these. The flawed Helldust gloves in Act 2 just give you free 1 to 4 fire damage, and there's no armor on these, so it's awesome. Legacy of the Masters, I don't know why I have these here. They're the wrong build. You can also use the Helldust gloves in Act 3 as well. You get them very late in the game, but they help you with your spell DC. They give you Rays of Fire, and it gives you 1 to 6 fire damage. But you can also use throughout the game all the many casting gloves, like the quick spell gloves, cantrips that cost an action, cost a bonus action instead. So you can use Booming Blade as a bonus action, which is really cool. Spell Might gloves, when casting a spell that requires an attack roll, you take a -5 penalty to the attack roll, but deal an additional 1d8. So you can use, the nice thing is you toggle this. So here, I'll put this on real quick. It adds a toggle that you turn on and off, kind of like Great Weapon Master, but for casting. So you can see that those are pretty fun if you want to lean into the spell casting direction of things. As far as your boots go, Disintegrating Night Stalkers in Act 1 are really good for mobility. Boots of Speed are really good here. We talked about the boots of Stormy Clamor. Those really are the ones that we're going to focus on, but I wanted to give you other options if you've already bypassed that point. Another good one here, though, is Boots of Striding. No, it's not. These are the medium armor ones that I had for a different build. God, what a cool video I'm making. But the other one here is the Helldusk Boots. You cannot be forcibly moved by spells or actions, and you ignore difficult terrain. When you fail a saving throw, you may use your reaction to succeed instead, which is really cool. Because you don't really have a lot of things that you can do with your reaction outside of shield and counterspell, which are huge things, but still my point remains. Use whatever mobility boots you can find if you don't have Storm and Clamor, but those The ones that are geared around thunder are really going to be the big ones here. Now for our rings and necklace, the necklace of elemental augmentation is huge. When one of your cantrips deals acid, fire, cold, lightning, or thunder damage, guess what Booming Blade is? Add your spellcasting modifier to the damage. So Booming Blade will now just do a free +4 damage right here, which is really sick. Killer Sweetheart is a good one for guaranteed critical hits in melee. Ring of Regeneration is always nice because it's just free healing. But for other jewelry items, we have the Corsair ring for Radiant Orb. If you want to, in the very beginning of the game, around like you get it. I think you get it from Omelium in the Myconoi colony. The Ring of Mental Inhibition, which is really good. When a foe fails a saving throw against one of your spells or actions, they gain mental fatigue, meaning it is harder for them to resist you further. And then it stacks up psychic damage, which is really cool. So, well, they have 5 or more turns of this condition. The entity takes 1 to 4 psychic damage and is no longer mentally fatigued. But the ones we talked about in the beginning of this section are way better, I think. Crusher's Ring, 10 feet movement, Ring of Free Action, ignore difficult terrain, can't be paralyzed or restrained. Other amulets, you can use the Amulet of Greater Health. I probably wouldn't, but it's just worth noting you have a very small health pool. We only have 82 health because we are 8 levels of Wizard and 4 levels of Fighter. So just keep that in mind. Amulet of Restoration, very early to turn on some healing. Moondrop Pendant to help dodge opportunity attacks until you get that necklace here of elemental augmentation. Amulet of the Harpers if you want to give yourself shield. Spellcrux Amulet here. It's worth noting, it used to be that you could just simply put this on, cast it, and then you would replenish your spell slot and you'd take it off. That is patched as of patch 8. And I don't know if that's patched across the game or only honor mode. Usually things like that are only honor mode related. They usually keep those little exploits in the game. So keep that in mind. If you're used to using Spellcrux Amulet or the Spell Savant Amulet to replenish a spell slot, it will not work in the sense that you equip it and use it. So just keep that in mind. Other one here is Amulet of Misty Step just for some mobility. Last section is on the cloaks. Thunderskin Cloak is really good here. When a creature with reverb deals damage to the wearer, the creature needs to make a Constitution saving throw or just become dazed. Dazed is cool. It's a nice one. This is just a good one to have because you have so many stacks of reverb in the beginning. But I think moving in the end game to something like Cloak of the Weave, which gives you +1 bonus to spell save DC and attack rolls, as well as absorbs elemental damage, is just a better cloak. Or Cloak of Displacement, which is just free blur. At the beginning of the wearer's turn, the cloak activates, granting enemies disadvantage on attack rolls that target the wearer. It doesn't give blur in the sense that it gives you, I mean, no, it's blur, it's blur, it's blur. I was thinking of mirror image. So it's just a free blur that's always active whenever you jump into combat. I really like this one. So if you want to stick more with melee, this is good. If you want to stack reverb, this is great. If you want to stack more damage, this is good. If you want just pure AC, Cloak of Protection is Old Faithful. It can never go wrong. So that's all of our gear and everything. Let's jump into some combat. So jumping into combat here, let's take a look at some stuff. I have activated a Potion of Speed to help me out with just showing off more actions. And I've activated Bladesong before combat because I knew it was coming. We are also using a Elixir of Battle Mage's Power here to add some more Arcane Acuity to show how that all stacks up. And to show off here what Bladesong looks like with our armor class, just assume here we did not have the hastened on right now. So Robe of the Weave plus Dexterity gives us all this capability here. So when you invoke the Bladesong, it's going to give you all this benefit, right? So it's nice because we can use mage armor, but just know that stuff like the Gloves of Battle Mage's Power, I'm sorry, not those. Where are they? Where is the Helm of Arcane Acuity? This is a really bugged, but this is a light armor. There we go, light armor helmet. So that does shut this off. That's why you can use something like the Storm Scion's Power, which would give you Arcane Acuity for thunder damage, just not as much. Just again showing these things off because it just gives you a sense for how your armor class is going to look, what it's going to be like with your character. So let's go over and do some fun stuff. For one, let's go use what Booming Blades feels like. Let's see how this is. So that just did 23 plus 9, and it will give me a Bladesong healing charge. This will invoke an attack of opportunity, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. Actually, proof warding flare. How sweet was that? I will hit this guy again for that extra attack first. Aha! You have really cool little special things here too when you use the Bladesong attacks, melee attacks. Let's now just use, again, the big thing here is kind of showing off what we can do here. We still have this bonus action, right? And I want to use this climax to show off how that bonus action works. So let's just use this. We'll amp it up to level 4 and just hit a bunch of stuff. And our arcane acuity, by the way, is up to +6, right? So +6 to our spell attack rolls and spell class difficulty, which wouldn't be affected here, right? But if I were to do instead cast, let's just say, I think it's actually going to use an attack roll here. This, it's got a 99% chance to hit with advantage. And also, Shadow Blade's advantage applies to this because this thing is in, it's dimly lit, right? So a lot of fun stuff that you can really do with this. Let's now pop into this. Remember when I didn't upcast that to a higher level spell because I'm not the best YouTuber in the world? So now we have 2 stacks here of Bladesong healing charge and 1 stack of Bladesong damage charge. And I know this isn't super amped up here, but it's just a way to show this off in one turn. You're gonna have multiple turns to do all this. In fact, let's use Action Surge to give us a 3rd action. And do this again, upcast it to 4. It's just cool to shoot that off, right? It's super sick. So again, our bonus action here, let's go ahead and do that climax. So let's jump right here just to show off what the damage is like. So Bladesong here, it's not big, huge numbers because it's very low, but that does 11 force damage, 8 force damage, and heals yourself as well. So you can see how this works all in conjunction. It's not something where you are just ripping and gripping big, huge damage bombs, but it's something where you build big points of momentum. Really, some of the biggest damage you do is when you're attacking in melee. So you can see we did 21 psychic damage, 23 psychic damage plus the 9 thunder. And when this guy goes to move, you see he's got Booming Blade on him. Affected entity will take 3 to 24 thunder damage when it moves. That's the biggest portion of Booming Blade, is yes, it is a weapon attack, but it afflicts with this condition, and that condition then triggers tons of other things that we've talked about so far. So it's a really awesome build that has a ton of really complex overlapping mechanics that can do a lot of really cool, crazy things. Also too, once you've done everything, Bladesong power doesn't require action or bonus action. So then we just simply press it again to go back into Bladesong. Song, not schlong. And remember, you don't have that many charges, and they only replenish on a long rest, so don't get too crazy. It just shows that you can have a lot of fun with this with or without Bladesong active. So go ahead and let me know in the comment section below if you would change this in any way. I know that 4 levels of fighter aren't very exciting. 4 levels of bard might be pretty cool, sword bard in specific, right? But I feel like I spice bard into too many things and I have to worry about charisma. You could have done rogue if you wanted and gone with the new swashbuckler stuff. That is a really cool way to take this build as well. Like I said, you could have gone 7-5 and gone 7 into Eldritch Knight to use that war magic for those bonus action cantrips. Lots of really fun and different ways you could approach this build. And I guarantee there's going to be a million of these all over the internet in a week. So be on the lookout for plenty of Jedi builds from plenty of people. But I have a ton more builds coming with patch 8. As always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.